What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Dylan here for another video. No podcast this week. I apologize for that. Mitch is on a flight. He's out of town this week, and Kev is working on some stuff, so wasn't able to get him. And I know this was supposed to be the debut of Luca, the first guest on the Bottom Line podcast, but we're like, okay, let's go ahead and wait another week so that everybody can be here. We'll all be good, and we'll have everybody here and have a good conversation. I don't want everybody to be rushed, so I decided today I was going to do my own solo topic video that we did last week. Mitch and I did on the podcast. The opposite. We did one reason why your favorite team could win the Super Bowl next year, and now we're going to do one reason why your favorite team won't win the Super Bowl. This is just my own list. Mitch did the AFC last time. I did the NFC. This time I did the entire list. I did the entire NFL. So I have a little bit of different opinions. I have a couple of things that are going to get repeated a little bit in terms of like health and stuff. So if it crosses over one or two times, that's the reason why, because I think some of these teams are a little bit weak in certain areas, and I think they're very similar in that way. So if you see that, that's why this, there's a little bit of the same things on this list. But it trust me, it doesn't get overbearing. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get into it. One reason why your favorite team won't win Super Bowl 54. We're going to start off in the AFC East, of course, the Dolphins. The reason they're not going to win the Super Bowl is because they're the least talented team in football. Again, I've said this probably the most amount of times out of any statement in the offseason. They just don't have the talent in order to win the Super Bowl or even get close to the playoffs. I think this Dolphins team could be the worst. They could have the worst record in the entire National Football League. They do have a couple of young, exciting pieces, especially in that secondary, Xavier Howard and Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think those two guys are really solid. And there's a couple of other low-key guys here. But as a whole, this team is lacking in a lot of pieces. Their receiver core is downright awful. Their quarterback situation, Ryan Fitzpatrick, just kind of filling in the role. And Josh Rosen, I don't really know why you got him if they're going to tank for Tua as the claims are going on here. It's very confusing. And there's just not a whole lot to be excited about going forward. I do like that they got Christian Wilkins in the draft. But overall, right now, their talent is lacking supremely, and I think it is the worst in the league. There are a couple of teams that are fighting for that position, but I think the Dolphins have a firm grip on it. And, yeah, it's going to be tough for them to even get a sniff at the playoffs, much less the Super Bowl. For the New York Jets, Darnold will not lead them to the promised land. Now, I've heard a bunch of people be in support of Sam Darnold. They're like, Sam Darnold's underrated. He's got really good abilities. But when I watched him last year, he was a pretty close to a bottom 10 quarterback. And I have said this with the Jared Goff argument that I like to give a quarterback 3 years in order to prove to me that they are a starter in this league or they are the top tier in this league. But when it comes to I got to make this video about this season, Darnold is that rule. He's not able to lead this team to the success that the Jets are just clamoring for since Super Bowl III. They're not going to be led by Sam Darnold because I think he has a lot of things to grow on. I think he needs to improve on a lot of aspects in this game, and I think he did have some good performances last year. But overall, I was just not impressed, and I'm still not impressed because I wasn't a fan of him even in college at USC, and I didn't understand the hype. And then I watched him. And there was glimpses of it, but there was not nearly as much consistency as I wanted to see, especially in a division that has the Patriots. I just don't see why the Jets really are trying to clamor for this opportunity for a Super Bowl. I don't think they have it. So I think Darnold is what's holding them back right now for this season. For the Buffalo Bills, I think it is one reason they're not going to win the Super Bowl is because their receivers are lacking supremely. We did talk about it as a bonus that they did get receiver talent for Josh Allen because they had even less talent last year, but they don't have a clear star receiver. When the reports or the rumors were coming out that Antonio Brown was with the Bills, we're like, dang, this really Antonio Brown. I don't know if I said that incorrectly. I think people were like, oh, wow, this is a great receiver target for Josh Allen. He needs somebody like that. This is huge, one of the best receivers in the game. Even if they do have lesser talent in the depth of 2 and 3, you still got Antonio Brown to go to. And if he's doubled up, you got one guy over here to, greater impact, just like Antonio Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster. But here, when we look at their depth chart right now, you got John Brown, Zay Jones, and Cole Beasley as their 3 receivers. Andre Roberts probably the 4th. not very good. I think it's pretty lacking in most departments. Zay Jones is okay. He's a second-round pick from 2017. I think he has some good pieces. I think he's a nice deep threat, but I don't think he's excelling in anything else. John Brown is, again, pretty mediocre. And Cole Beasley, as me as a Cowboys fan, he's had glimpses of really good moments and really good games, but he isn't nearly as consistent, and it all depends on what his quarterback does. So while they did get Josh Allen some pieces for depth, they didn't really get that star receiver to help them forward, and I think that's going to hurt them because they have a lot of good stuff on their defense, but their offense in this receiver game is lacking quite a bit for me. For the New England Patriots, now, why would I even put a reason as to why they won't win the Super Bowl? Because they're almost guaranteed to make it to the Super Bowl. But I gotta make a video. Everybody's gotta have a reason. So the reason that I put is that somebody is going to make this upset. Yeah, it's kind of a cop-out, but let me explain. So in the AFC, we've seen plenty of chances where in the AFC Championship game, there's been a team very close to upstaging them. The Broncos in 2015 were able to beat Tom Brady and the Patriots in the AFC Championship game. The Chiefs were very close to doing so last year. The Jaguars in the AFC Championship game, if it wasn't really for Blake Bortles, they had a clear opportunity. They were leading in the fourth quarter. So I feel like if there is any time to do it, they need to get this upset now. Tom Brady is going to be 41. He's not the youngest cat in the world, and I feel like the Patriots offense in 2018 was more centered around running than throwing the ball. He was still a good quarterback. He was near a top 5 quarterback last year. But in terms of the production that we saw, it was more of a run game. And I feel like if any team that's really trying to contend this year, there are a couple of really good contenders that are sneaking up on us. I think they need to realize the Patriots system and really focus on it. Because this Patriots team making the playoffs. They're almost 100% making the playoffs unless something devastating happens. So you need to come in there, make an upset, really game plan for Bill Belichick because he's going to try to change every scheme in the book to try to win his games. And get that upset. Somebody's got to do it. So the reason I don't think they'll win the Super Bowl, if we're making this kind of case, is that some team is going to figure out that game plan and get the job done because you only need to do it once. You get one opportunity, one chance, and if you do it, you're a hero, basically. So that's why I see that for the Patriots. AFC North time. I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns to start here, and I put team chemistry. This is something Kev brought on, and I think it is one of the more fairer points that he brought about the Browns here. Because I think he's putting on a little too much hate for the Browns as this, I don't know if they're making the playoff situation, but he did bring up this one good point. The fact that when you have all these people, all these talents here, it's a great idea on paper, but are they going to have the team chemistry to do so? You gotta form this bond and really see that, you can say in the preseason you're doing well or in training camp, but when it comes to games, are you getting it through every 60 minutes? And is everybody contributing the way you want? And is there no drama? Is there something else? There's a lot of big personalities on this Browns team. And you all have to come together and make this point correct. You have to make this team work and flow really, really well. And I don't know if they're going to be able to do it so hot the first season. Granted, I do think they'll make a playoff run. I think they will still do well in the playoffs, but I need to see them have that chemistry, and I'm not just 100% sure that they're going to have that spark right away in order to win the Super Bowl, because that's quite a jump from what the Cleveland Browns are. So I'm going to go good team chemistry here for the Browns. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, their offense is not nearly as strong as it was in previous years. Their receiver core is lacking at this particular moment, and that's the biggest reason why I put this here. But there's also another reason. For the receivers, you got Juju Smith-Schuster, who I love. I think he's one of my favorite receivers in the game. I really appreciate what he's doing. But what Juju Smith-Schuster has to realize that he is the number one receiver now. There's no Antonio Brown. He's going to be the number one guy. And what I think Juju benefited from in the first 2 years was that when AB was double covered, just like I brought up in the Bills list here, he was able to get those targets because he was being double teamed. Now he's going to get that much attention. Somebody else is going to have to step up. I think James Washington is a good receiver. I think they have good talent. If you throw in Ryan Switzer in there, the tight ends need to get involved. But it's not nearly as strong, you can say, as 3 years ago when they had not only Antonio Brown, but Le'Veon Bell to throw there. And that brings me to my other point. James Conner, especially in the second half of the year, didn't really sell me as much as he did in the first half. He was having really good games in the first half, and he kind of just fell down the totem pole, if you will. as the season went along. So the question remains, is James Conner worth that starting job as the running back, or is he worth that potential that people think he has? And I'm not 100% sold on that. And while Ben Roethlisberger had a really good year last year, is this offense going to flow around him knowing that they don't have any more Antonio Browns or Le'Veon Bells? So that's why I got to put for the Steelers here. For the Cincinnati Bengals, there's plenty of reasons why they won't be winning the Super Bowl this year, but I decided to put first-year head coach Zach Taylor. When you have a first-year head coach, it is pretty much a sign that your team is not doing well because you're not going to get fired if you're winning the Super Bowl. That's just downright ridiculous. So with the Bengals, they decided, Marvin Lewis, you're finally gone. You haven't won a playoff game in, I think it was 13, 14 years, whatever it was. Absolutely something ridiculous. So they decided we need to go and get somebody else. And this team has been floating around in like weird land. Like, I don't understand what they've been doing last year. They started off well. I think they were like 4-1, and then Andy Dalton got hurt, and everything just kind of fell apart. But with the new head coach, it is very unpredictable. You don't really know what he's going to bring. A lot of people don't know who Zach Taylor is. He was the quarterback's coach for the Rams, which was involved with Jared Goff, who I'm a little bit mixed on at this moment. I don't know what he's going to bring to the table, and he's very young. That could also be a good thing because of the new youth movement in the head coaching department. But right now, I don't see it. I don't know anything about him, and any confidence that I can give him is not there for me. So there's a lot of things that I don't think the Bengals are going to be doing well in order to try to make a Super Bowl run, but I think this is the biggest example. And finally, for the AFC North, the Ravens. Lamar Jackson's not proven and polished enough as a passer. I still think he's a good quarterback. I loved his days in Louisville. I really liked what he did in college. He obviously won a Heisman for a reason, but his run game was so exceptional in those days, and even in the games with the Ravens. But you saw it in the AFC wildcard game against the Chargers, where they figured out he was going to run, and they needed him to pass. And for like more than three quarters, he couldn't do it. He was just not able to throw the football. And going into this year, I know they're going to be working on that a lot, but I feel like teams maybe have had this plan. They've got this plan set in stone that they're going to be focused on stopping Lamar Jackson running at all costs, so that he has to force throws. He has to make bad decisions. He's gonna be running under pressure a lot. So if you can force that run game to be stopped to a minimum, they might have already figured out their game plan. And I'm just not sold on Lamar Jackson fixing those his throwing abilities right for this season. AFC South time, the Texans. I put disappointing in final game start of the playoffs. And again, this is like kind of another one of those cop-outs, if you will, but I need to explain this. Whenever you think of the Texans, you think, there's a little bit of inconsistency. I've always thought, this year that they're going to be a little overrated. I feel like a lot of people are on the hype train because of the talent that they have, or the high pieces of Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, J.J. Watt, Jadeveon Clowney, etc. But A, I think Jadeveon Clowney is a little bit overrated in his own right. And B, you see what this team does in the course of its last couple of games. Last year, they faltered pretty hard. They had a strong grasp on it, and then barely won their division, and then they got into the playoffs and disappointed heavily in their game against the Colts. That was so disappointing to watch because even though I was thinking the Colts were going to win because of the momentum that they had and the better team that I thought they had, the Texans were just like faltering. They could not hit the gas pedal whatsoever, and it's happened many a times in their playoff runs that you see them go in here with high expectations, something that you're looking forward to, the youth movement and their defense, and then they just come out there and wet the bed in the biggest stage. And I just don't know if the Texans are able to get past that motion. And I think, I put them as my second most overrated team this year. I don't think they have the will to get to the Super Bowl, in my opinion. For the Indianapolis Colts, this is another team that I'm really liking to win the Super Bowl this year. But again, as a reason why I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl, I think it is because of their receivers. Are they going to step up? Of course, we got T.Y. Hilton. You know what T.Y. Hilton's going to bring to the table. He's really good, but he's also a little bit injury prone. Then you got Devin Funchess, one of my least favorite contracts of the NFL offseason. I do like that it was 1 year, but $15 million is absolutely ridiculous, especially for a guy that had a down year last year compared to his 2017 breakout year. I really didn't like that. And there's no Dontrell Inman anymore. Eric Ebron is still a really good tight end, of course. You're not going to, last year he had a great season. Like before that in Detroit, he didn't do all that well, but in Indianapolis, he was catching tight end or touchdowns like crazy. It was insane. So what I'm looking for is another receiver to step up here, but are they going to do so? And is T.Y. Hilton going to be healthy? I'm not 100% sure. Again, this is a team that I really like and a lot of good things about them, but that's one of my biggest concerns here. For the Jacksonville Jaguars, I said Foles does not lead them to the promised land. Again, when we did all of our free agency analysis videos, if you haven't checked some of those out, go check them out. When we talked about Nick Foles, I was very skeptical of this signing because what I thought Nick Foles did so well in Philadelphia was he had the team around him. He had the team chemistry around him. The people really understood him. The team was really on Nick Foles' hype train, and they were sold on what he was going to be able to do. So he won the Super Bowl as a backup, did a great job then. And then when Carson Wentz was hurt this last season, he was still able to get them into the playoffs because they were not set up for a playoff spot like in week 13, and they were able to get the wild card, pulled off an upset against the Bears, and were very close to going back to the AFC Championship game. But that was all as the backup for the team that really supported him. Now he's getting another chance as a starter somewhere else in a completely different conference. I'm not 100% sold on him being this starting role with this new team. Or is this going to be a working unit together? I'm not 100% sold on that because we've seen Nick Foles given the keys as a starter on multiple occasions, and he wasn't able to get the job done. His 2013 season was great, but other than that, have we seen him as a full consistent on a consistent basis as a quarterback get the job done? We really haven't. So besides that 2013 season. So I need to see a little bit more of that. I need to see Jaguars get it done there. I'm not 100% sold on this team here. If he proves me wrong, great. I would love to see it. But I just don't see if Foles is going to get it with this contract. And for the Tennessee Titans, I put Marcus Mariota. I don't like Marcus Mariota. I'm going to pronounce it correctly. Marcus Mariota, I do not think is a good quarterback in this league. I think, first of all, he gets injured a lot, and that is not a good thing. And second, I put in our top 10 backup quarterback list last week that Ryan Tannehill is basically the same person. If you put Ryan Tannehill in, your record is going to say pretty much the same. He could even win you one more game. So I don't think you could interchange those guys, and nothing would change for me. That is not good if you were the starting quarterback. You do not want your backup to be as good or maybe even better than you. That's pretty bad. So Marcus Mariota is not a leader to this team. I don't think he excels in one great thing in particular. And I think, when we're talking about Super Bowl contenders and getting to the Super Bowl, this is not the quarterback that I expect to be the Super Bowl leading quarterback. So that's why I got what I got here for the Titans. Even though they did improve a lot, I just think he's holding it back. Let's go to the AFC West. One more AFC division. Kansas City Chiefs. It's pretty simple. Their secondary is terrible. Tyreek Hill might be coming back after 4 games, which is absolutely ridiculous. That's a whole nother discussion. And I would have said that if it had not been released today, that he might get maximum 4 games. But I'm going to go with the Chiefs secondary because even though their defensive front seven is really good, you got Frank Clark, Chris Jones, part of that solid team, if you will, and some pretty decent linebackers. You go into their secondary, and it is still terrible. They made no effort into trying to getting a cornerback or a safety to help this team because it's pretty much the exact same as last year. They got Rashawn Breeland they added low-key pieces that are not going to help this team at all. They are not going to make their defense of secondary 2018 any better next year. It's just really, really lacking. And again, they're going to have to win these shootouts. And while I think Patrick Mahomes, my favorite quarterback in the league right now, he's going to be able to do his thing, but you can't rely on him 24/7. Like, Jesus, the secondary's got to make some stops at some point. Again, their defensive front seven's really good, but that secondary's going to hold them back for a while unless they get some freaking talent. Jesus. For the Los Angeles Chargers, is a little bit close to the Houston Texans in their playoff consistency. This is a team that I've been hyping up. Not the 2017 year specifically. I was like, okay, they're overrated a little bit. Still should have made the playoffs. But last season, I was like, I really like this team. Their defense is solid enough. Joey Bosa, Melvin Ingram. Their secondary, Derwin James, was awesome. And their offense got the job done in more ways than one. But you got to the playoffs. They beat the Ravens. And then they wet the bed again against the New England Patriots, a team that I thought they could have had a chance to win. I thought they could have won that game going into it. but they really came out and put a really poor performance. So, again, this is a team that could make the playoffs 100%. I think the Chiefs and the Chargers have this division going back and forth, but this team in the playoffs isn't getting the job done for me. It hasn't got the job done in a very, very long time, and I need to see them get that over that hurdle for me to have that confidence. But as of right now, getting to the Super Bowl is just a hard accomplishment for them because they can't beat the best teams in the AFC come playoff time. For the Broncos, I put lack of quarterback presence. You do have Joe Flacco as the quarterback right now, and I do not like him as a quarterback right now on a 2-year deal, but I'm not mad now that they made this 2-year deal. But when we're talking about this season, it needs to be said. And Drew Lock, I do think it was a great steal. Not the greatest quarterback in the world, but a great steal. I believe the 41st pick in the draft. But in terms of getting the job done for now in this year, I don't see it from either quarterback. Flacco is past his prime. Flacco has not given you the great looks that he used to give you, especially in the 2012 playoffs. Of course, everybody likes to talk about that, but that was 7 years ago. We're not in that stage anymore, and the Broncos just kind of want something there, but I don't think he's going to give it to you in this, to make it to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. And finally, for the Oakland Raiders, I have their defense. I think their defense is lacking in a lot of ways. Let me pull up their depth chart real quick because I was looking at it earlier and I was like, it's a little old. It's not very experienced. There's not a whole lot of great things. Old and experienced. Wow, that was going to be a oxymoron. But there's not a whole lot of things that I like about it. First of all, you had Clinton Farrell, who I thought was a huge, huge reach at number 4. Again, I'm not saying that he's going to be a bad player. I like the guy, but you could, first of all, say that he was probably the second best player on that Clemson team. I still think Christian Wilkins was better. And second, when you have talent like Ed Oliver and Josh Allen on the board, you're really cheesing me when you're getting a guy like Clinton Farrell. So there's one. I do like Maurice Horst and Arden Key, but their linebackers I think are lacking supremely. Garen Conley, Vontez Burfict, Brandon Marshall's okay, but those two guys before him are right there. LaMarcus Joyner is good. Their secondary, their corners are pretty lacking. Nick Nelson, Trayvon Mullen. I'm not a big fan of this defense. And when you're in this kind of division with the Chiefs and the Chargers, who are going to put up some points, I don't think they're going to be able to stand on their own 2 feet when it comes down to it. And plus, they've got a lot of old talent that needs to get the job done. So that's what I have for the Oakland Raiders. All right, that is the AFC. We're going on to the NFC East, or the NFC, and now we're going to start with the NFC East. For my Dallas Cowboys, coaching. Yes, we did get rid of Scott Linehan. I'm very, very happy that we got rid of him. He was not a good offensive coordinator. He was not getting the job done. Mitch did make a video about why Kellen Moore could be the secret weapon for the Cowboys. I would go check that out. The reason I have skepticism, though, is because Jason Garrett is still there. He's still making the majority of the play calls. He's going to be the leader of this team. And for God's sakes, I don't like him. Nobody has liked him on this team since he debuted in 2010 in terms of head coaching. We need to get rid of him because he's going to be this presence for a very long time. And he's really sucking the life out of me because even though there's still great talent on this team, Dak, Zeke, the offensive line, the defensive line's amazing. The linebackers are really the best linebacking core in the league. And the secondary is really underrated. It's always been about the coaching. It's always been the biggest issue of this team. And even though the second biggest piece is gone with Scott Linehan, I'm not 100% sure the problem is fixed because we still have Jason Garrett. For the Philadelphia Eagles, I put in this is kind of more of an NFC thing. I've saw about 3 different teams have this problem. Is Carson Wentz injury prone? We've seen the last 2 seasons have some really bad injuries, and I don't like to be that guy. But, of course, he tore his ACL in 2017 when they won the Super Bowl. And then last year had a lot of back problems. He didn't start the year as the quarterback because he was hurt. Came back in week 3, and then week 10 or so when he played the Cowboys, his back was hurting and had to be out for the rest of the year then. So the question remains, is Carson Wentz injury prone? Is he going to be the quarterback? And unlike those 2 previous seasons, you do not have a backup. Nate Sudfeld is underrated. He's a fine quarterback, but you don't have the leader in Nick Foles to lead you to these situations. You don't have that security blanket. You don't have that insurance policy. Now you have Nate Sudfeld, who, again, can fill in the role fine, but he's not going to get you to the Super Bowl. So In any case, is Carson Wentz going to be is injury prone? Is he going to be 100% healthy? That's my biggest question. I'm not saying he's going to be hurt. For these three teams, I'm not saying the reason why they're going to be missing the Super Bowl is because they're going to get hurt. The reason I'm saying it is because are these quarterbacks going to be there for the season? We've had questions about them here before. Are they going to be able to do it this year? For the Redskins, I put that they are too unpolished. Now, I need to explain this because I do like what the team is trying to implement. They had, in my opinion, one of the best drafts of 2019. They had a really solid draft. They got Montez Sweat. They got Dwayne Haskins, two of my favorite picks in the entire draft. And they're overall looking a lot better than what they do in usual years. But again, the consistency level to try and get this team over the hill is a little bit questionable. And again, this NFC is a loaded conference. There's a lot of teams that could come in here and not only win their divisions, but get in those two wildcard teams, those wildcard seeds 5 and 6, because there's a lot of teams fighting for that. And I feel like the Redskins, while they do have some good stuff, are just not there quite yet. They're going to need more time to develop. And right now, their unpolishedness is why they won't be winning the Super Bowl. For the New York Giants, I mean, do I even have to put a reason? Like, can I just skip them? I'm not going to do so. I need to be fair to all teams. But the reason why the Giants won't be winning the Super Bowl is pretty easy. I even put two reasons. One, they're dysfunctional. This team has had, all the spiraling out of control for the last couple of months. It has calmed down because we're in this like dull period of the NFL right now where we're just not getting any news or anything like that. But especially like the month before the draft when free agency was starting, and then the draft with all the decisions they made. All this crazy stuff. We're like, Jesus, this team is not doing any favors for itself and is continuing to make bad decision after bad decision. They drafted freaking Daniel Jones with the 6th pick. Do I need to say any more? We've said it a lot on this podcast, on the podcast itself, and the draft analysis. We're like, geez, this is terrible, terrible stuff. And then I put this a second reason, Eli Manning. As long as this guy is the quarterback, this team will never make it. This team will not have the success. And I get that this year is probably the year that we're going to accept this the most because he needs to train Daniel Jones to be the next quarterback. But as long as this guy is still on the roster and still the starting quarterback, he's not helping the team. He's not making the team have any favors, not winning them a Super Bowl. No question about it. He's the worst quarterback in the league. For the NFC North, again, one of these questions about lacking a star receiver. I do think they have depth at their position, but I don't think they're like the clear-cut like star guy. Let me get their depth chart once again here. They do have Allen Robinson, who you could consider their biggest receiver, but I don't think he's been, great, the greatest guy in the world. Taylor, excuse me, Taylor Gabriel, a guy that I had on my fantasy team, was wildly inconsistent. One game he had 8 receptions for 110 yards and a touchdown, and the next game he did 1. I didn't like that personally as a fantasy football guy, so I studied him a lot. Anthony Miller, he's okay. I like the draft pick of Riley Ridley, but he's also a 4th-round pick, and I don't know how much they're going to use him. And Marvin Hall's on this team, and Cordell Patterson. They have depth pieces, but they don't have star guys. I need to see one of them step up here because I think this team is good, and I didn't want to put Mitchell Trubisky because even though I don't think he's the greatest quarterback in the world, and they still don't really like him as a quarterback, I put that he needs to have that development in order to win Super Bowl 54. I'm not going to put, he's not a good quarterback on this list. That's just, that's just not right. So I decided to go with their wide receiver, the lack of starting receiver, star receiver for them. For the Minnesota Vikings, I think for me, their secondary is either lacking or is kind of overrated. Again, I thought I had their list here, but let's look at their depth chart again. And I'll explain to you why I think their secondary is kind of overrated or lacks. First off, we have here Trey Waynes. I don't think he's very good. He's your starting cornerback on the left side. I just don't think he's that great whatsoever. Xavier Rhodes had a very down and poor last season at the right cornerback position. I think he did fine, but in terms of what Xavier Rhodes brings to the table, he had a very down year. Harrison Smith had all the hype in 2017 when they went to the NFC Championship game, did really well. His stats went down last year. Anthony Harris, nothing special to me. Mackenzie Alexander, excuse me. I don't see a lot of things in him either. this team either lacks that central talent that I think that they could produce, like Xavier Rhodes and Harrison Smith, for example, or it just isn't like enough for me to be like, man, this team's getting sold on that secondary. I don't think those pieces are very great either with Mackenzie Alexander and Anthony Harris and Trey Waynes. Like, not feeling it. For who's the next team? The Detroit Lions. I put this is a little bit of a cop-out as well. Tough division / they can they win these close games? When I say tough division, I think this is the division probably like along with the NFC South and the AFC South as well, where it's a toss-up. Any one of these teams can win their division. So it also makes it a little bit more difficult to win the division, if that makes any sense. You got to play this division 6 times. You got to play these guys 6 times. So it's not going to be easy to win or have a winning record against all of them. And the Lions have had their troubles against their own division. The Packers have been a little bit of a trouble. The Vikings, the Bears games especially. What are they going to be able to do within their own division and having to deal with these teams that are trying to make the playoffs? Because again, this is a very loaded conference. You got to deal with that. And also, are they going to be able to win these close games? Are they going to be able to finish it out, get the job done? I'm not 100% sold on that idea for the Detroit Lions. I am quite excited to see what they do because I have actually, like last year we were like, this team is terrible, and they proved it. But this year they made the improvements to really get the job done, I think. And I think they are going to have an interesting fight to the finish. But are they going to be able to capitalize on that finish? That's the question. And finally, for the NFC North, the Green Bay Packers. Again, another one of those 1-2 punches. I put Matt LaFleur as their first option because I'm not sold on Matt LaFleur's potential. I saw him as the head coach for, I saw him as the coach for the Titans, and I was not impressed whatsoever. And now he's gone. He was the offensive coordinator, I should say, for the Titans. And I was not impressed. His play calling was pretty bland. He wasn't able to get the job done like I thought he was, people wanted him to. And now having to deal with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, who's a little bit of a prima donna and clearly has shown that he doesn't like his head coaches when they do something wrong. We need to see that chemistry, and I don't know if that's going to get it done here. And second, their receiver depth is probably one of the worst in the league. You got Devontae Adams, who I think has really surged into being a top 10 receiver in this game. We were talking about, when he was coming in, like, this guy has the potential. He has the potential. Last year, he proved his potential 100%. But look at the rest of the talent. We got St. Brown. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that first name. It's almost impossible for me. Geronimo Allison, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Like, these guys are not very good. Like, those 3 guys that I mentioned were either 5th or 6th round picks. They don't have that star second guy or even a decent filler at the second role to get this job done because it's wildly inconsistent at the other receiver positions. You're going to have to put a lot of work into fixing that. And I don't think they have the receiver depth to do so. So I think they're quite lacking in that as well. All right, NFC South time. For the Saints, I put Drew Brees is holding on by a thread. And I shouldn't say by a thread, but holding on to whatever football he has. Because even though he did play a great year last year, he was second, in my opinion, in MVP voting. The reason I say this is because you have to watch from the Cowboys game, literally watch the start of the Cowboys game to the end of the season. He lacked a lot of what he had in those first 10 or 11 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it was. Because the Cowboys, I think, really exposed him for what he was able to accomplish. And then you could see it in his arm. He wasn't able to get the deep passes as much. He wasn't able to be as consistent as he usually likes to be. And the stats went down increasingly as those last 5 or 6 games were played. And then we saw it in the playoffs. He didn't have the greatest games in the world. I feel like he was bailed out by some really good defensive play. Like we saw in that Eagles game in the divisional round. That defense stepped up huge. Especially after that first quarter, because they were exposed in the first quarter. But second quarter on, they were doing fantastic. And in the NFC Championship game, he wasn't able to get what I thought he should be getting out of him. So is Drew Brees going to be able to do that for another full season? Is he going to be able to put up the production that they want him to? I'm not 100% sure. I think he is, obviously he's a legend. But is he going to be able to be that consistent this year around? I'm not 100% sold. For the Atlanta Falcons, I put running back situation with Devontae Freeman. He's a very good running back. He can produce something worth a very notable season. But injury concerns are there for a reason, and it's actually going to be an issue with another team on this in this division. But with Devontae Freeman, the defense was really hurt last year, but I think they can come back. I'm not sold because when you lose a running back for a season, when you lose that year off of your NFL career, it's hard to come back and really produce as much as you did before. And is he going to be able to do that for this offense? Because their offense is really sold enough. I really like Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, of course. You know the offense. And I could have put their offensive line, but they did draft 2 guys in the first round to help that out. I just think Devontae Freeman's health and what he's going to be able to do is questioning, because you don't have Tevin Coleman anymore. You got Ito Smith, who I'm not sold on. He had like 1 big fantasy game, and that was about it. So, I'm just confused at what Devontae Freeman's going to bring to the Falcons team for me. And I think that could be a big issue come playoff time. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, again, a lot of reasons. I do like Bruce Arians as the head coach, but the reason I'm putting him on here is the one reason they won't. It's because Jameis Winston. I have never liked this guy. I have never liked him in college. I never liked him in the pros. I have never saw really the hype for this guy. I always thought he was just overrated. Probably my most overrated player I have seen in the last 5 or 6 years. And here's the thing. I see a little talent. I can see the glimpse of talent that can be there. We've seen plenty of opportunities for him to change it up, and he has it. He has 57 career interceptions in the NFL. 57. This guy has been in the league since 2015. 4 seasons. 57 interceptions. That's terrible. I do not want to see a quarterback throw that many interceptions. It's like him and Eli are having a contest to see how many they can do. It's ridiculous. And when you're trying to lead this team, you got to be the quarterback now that Ryan Fitzpatrick is gone. This is your last chance, buddy. This is literally the last chance he's going to be able to get in the NFL, in my opinion. And I think he's going to falter because I haven't seen any good production from him in the NFL in his career. And finally, for the Carolina Panthers, I did mention that Cam Newton is going to be a big benefit to him, but this is the time I'm going to reverse it here a little bit. It's his health. Is he 100% healthy? Is he 100% ready to go? Because when he isn't, the offense is extremely lacking, and they do not have a backup quarterback to get it done. I guess they drafted Will Grier, but I'm not a fan of Will Grier in the slightest. Sorry about this contact issue. But yeah, Cam Newton is a really good quarterback, one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the league. Of course, we talk about it a lot on this channel. We do like Cam Newton, but his health needs to be questioned and whether or not this team is going to be able to get it done. And again, I really like what they're bringing in. I like their defense a lot. I like Christian McCaffrey, again, one of my favorite upcoming players in the game, But is Cam Newton's health going to be able to get through all 16 games and lead them further? Is he going to be able to take these hits? Is he going to be okay? It's the injury-prone concern that I have, that I had with Carson Wentz, that I have with Cam Newton, and I have with one guy in the NFC West that I'll talk about last. So we'll see how it goes. I'm hoping for the best, but those injury concerns are there for a reason. Last division, guys, and then I'll look at the comments, and then I'll be heading out of here. For the NFC West, I put for the Rams. This is another one. This is for the running back, though. Todd Gurley's health. This one is a bigger concern than any other injury on this list because we saw it affect the playoffs in a massive way. It started off in the NFC Divisional game against the Cowboys where he wasn't going in. It was the C.J. Anderson game. He was going off like crazy. And again, you don't have C.J. Anderson anymore. He's gone. He's with the Lions now. There's no C.J. Anderson big boy to beef him up. It's Todd Gurley, and apparently he has arthritis in his knee, which if that's the case is terrible and not going to help out your future stock whatsoever. And while he had a great year last year before the injury, it's a huge concern because then you got to rely on Jared Goff, who I'm not sold on. And, he's a big part of this offense and what they run. So if Todd Gurley's not healthy, what is this team going to do? They're going to be screwed, in my opinion. They have a lot of good pieces, and I love that Cooper Kupp's coming back, but man, Todd Gurley's health is a reason why I'm very skeptical about this team going into next year. For the Arizona Cardinals, I could put their youth, but I actually use their youth as a good thing in my reasons why they could make the Super Bowl. But I'm going to go with their offensive line because their offensive line, even though they made improvements from last year, is still really bad. Like their offensive line last year was the worst in the league. Actually, you know what was second worst? The Texans' offensive line was the worst because Deshaun got sacked like crazy. But it was the second worst in the league. It was terrible. And they made some improvements. They got Marcus Gilbert from Pittsburgh. I think that was a nice addition at right tackle. We got Justin Pugh, Mason Cole, J.R. Sweezy, DJ Humphries. I think the left tackle and right tackle situations are good. I'd be fine with that. But those interior three are not selling it for me whatsoever. And you're going to have a guy like Kyler Murray who's going to have to run a lot. I know he runs a lot, and that's a good thing, but he's going to get sacked a lot too. And I think with that offensive line, it's really going to hurt them. They need to get somebody in the first round next year to help this offensive line, because I know they got their playmakers, they got their franchise quarterback. I'm not mad about them, and they got a lot of great receivers in this draft, like Akeem Butler and Andy Isabella, and I'm perfectly happy with that. But the offensive line, it needs to get better. Whether they produce well or they need to draft. That's all I'm going to say. And for this year, it's a big hamper. It's going to be a big what's the word? It's going to be negative for them in a way. For the Seahawks, I put their defensive edge rushers / their defense as a whole. Like they're not the defense as a whole, their defensive line as a whole. I almost put the receivers here because you don't have Doug Baldwin anymore. You're going to have to rely on DK Metcalf. But you also got to realize that they had a perfect passer rating. Russell wasn't a perfect passer rating to Tyler Lockett. I think it worked out pretty well for himself. But I went ahead and went with the defensive line because I'm either not sold on these guys or I don't like these guys. You got LJ Collier, who you drafted in the first round. I think was a massive downgrade from Frank Clark. The guy from TCU here. I think he's okay. I think he works well in certain situations, but he's a downgrade in every way, shape, and form. And I don't think he's going to produce as well as what people think. I know people are saying he's underrated. I don't think so. Jerron Reed, Ponya Ford. I don't think these guys are all that talented, all that good. And you did sign Zeke Yancey, but he's been lacking in quality for the last 2 seasons or so. Plus, he's also been injured for the Detroit Lions. So, is he going to bring in all that great potential that he has? I don't know. He's been very consistent. So it's either guys that I'm not sold on, guys that I don't think are very good, or in the case of Ziggy Ansah, a guy that has just been injury prone and hasn't been on the football field. It's pretty much that, plain and simple. And finally, last team here, the 49ers. Mitch's second team here. Another one of those questions about Jimmy Garoppolo's health is the question here. When you look at a quarterback, and again, I'm not saying these guys are going to get hurt. I want to preface that. But when a guy tears his ACL last year, you're coming in a little bit scared. You're coming in a little bit hesitant to what they're going to be able to do. And I think this team is set up for success. Kyle Shanahan is a great offensive mind. And he was able to get guys like Nick Mullins and the guy from Iowa. I cannot think of his name. It's going to hurt me. If you guys remember the comments, let me know. CJ Beathard. And Nick Mullins, just shut up. If those guys were able to get wins in the offensive system of Kyle Shanahan, then Jimmy Garoppolo certainly can. He is a very talented quarterback. But that being said, those guys weren't injured. Those guys didn't have an injury history. Jimmy Garoppolo is coming off a torn ACL. That is a very scary injury. And coming back into it, is he going to be able to produce? There could be any questions around that, the level of what they're going to bring. And I want to see there's potential there for sure. I need to see it get done 100% for the 49ers. All right, so that is the end of the list for me. Let's go ahead and get to the comments that I see here in the live chat, and then I will bounce out of this video. So I want to see these comments around here. So let's see. Kevin DeCant says, we already know why my team won't. Dilly, we already know why yours won't. Well, I made both of this perfectly clear. Ernest says Carolina Panthers will win Super Bowl 54 championship. I really like what the Panthers have said. I brought them as my number 2 most underrated team. So I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl, but they do have a level of hype for me, I will say. Donnie says I'm going to go crazy and say the Eagles are 19-0. Nah, I can't say that. As many times as I've said great teams on this channel, I've never put a team at 19-0. It's almost impossible. NFC West predictions for Sebastian: Rams 13-3, Seahawks 9-7, 49ers 9-7, Cardinals 6-10. I don't think the Rams will be 13-3. I think they're worse off than they were a year ago, and I think they're going to take a step down. How many steps down or how far of a step, we'll see. Seahawks, I think 9-7 is pretty fair. It's about the record I see. 49ers, I feel like they're going to be 10-6. They're going to be fighting for that wild card spot. And Cardinals, I think 5-11, 6-10 is pretty fair in my opinion. Nathaniel says hi. Hi. Saucy says, do you think the Seahawks will win? Win what exactly? Like the division? I don't think so. There's a level of maybe they could. Like I think with the Rams taking a step down and the 49ers having to meet expectations, the Seahawks can come in here and do well. I think they could make an impact. Do I think they're going to win the division? No. I think the 49ers will at this moment, but I definitely don't see them going last. I talked about the Lions. Seahawks are winning 9 games. That's too high. I disagree. Patriots, of course. I mean, why not? Patriots are still the most favorite team in the league to win this division. I had to make a reason, and I made my reason, but if I was ever going to say it, there's the reason. Pats are done. I can't agree with that. You guys saw what happened last time. Hot Take Hockey. Hey, guys. What's up, my boy? What's up, John? Of course, Hot Take Hockey. Go subscribe to them, guys. I know it's the offseason for them as well, but they're making good content as well. What's their subscriber count, bro? Actually, it's not loading at this moment, but go to channel. I need to know these things, We're hitting marks for each other. So get them to 8,000. They're close to 8,000. 7843. Good shit. Good shit. Cool. Wow. How do you pronounce that? Krolamalu. Wow, I butchered the hell out of that. I'm sorry for that, buddy. He says Patriots and Chiefs are definitely not making the AFC Championship game. Chargers and Eagles are hands down best teams in the league, and I think they will go to the Super Bowl. Here's the problem. Eagles, I could definitely see for sure. Chargers, I like as a team, but I'm very questionable after the previous. Like I said earlier in this video, there are questions about what they brought to the table in the playoffs in the last couple of years. And Patriots, they always make it to at least the AFC Championship game. They've done it since 2010. It's ridiculous. Broncos are a sleeper. I think they are a sleeper team. I know Kev has been on that hype train a little bit, one Pride 40, but I'm on that border. I don't think they're going to be winning the Super Bowl or anything, but in terms of the playoffs, I can see it. Tony says agree with the Eagles. Thank you. I'm going to call him Lou because I just cannot pronounce his name. My dark horse team are the Panthers and Steelers. Definitely the Panthers, my second most underrated team this year. Steelers, very questionable for me. Steelers are going to beat the Patriots in the first game. Well, that'll be interesting. People counted the Patriots out last season, but hey, they beat the Chiefs. Did I mention it at home? And the Rams in the biggest game held them to 3 points. And you scored more of those two. Yeah, the Patriots. I did predict very early on when I was going through they were going to be 11-5, and I had people were like, "Whoa, 11-5, that's odd." I pushed it up to 12-4, and I should have stuck to my gut. It was 11-5, but all 5 losses were to non-playoff teams, which was very strange. They were able to come into the playoffs and do what the Patriots do. So I have no questions about them. They're always going to do what they do. Let's see here. Go Pack Go, says Thomas, of course. Eagles are going to the playoffs for sure. We got the Bears in there for Sebastian. Cowboys Nation from Drew. Yes, sir, Cowboys Nation. Let's go, baby. A little bit behind live. Colts signed him to a 10-year contract. Oh, okay. I thought it was 15. I thought that was what the report came out. But if it was 10, that's a little bit more fair, but still a little high for me. But still better than 15 mil. Rams are going to suck next year. I don't agree. I don't think they're going to suck. They are old, as Predator says, but let's see. Seahawks are winning the NFC West. Debatable. You can watch it. Robot, you can still watch the replay. I'm sorry. I know it's not live. Patriots, if the world somehow ends, says Jeremy. That is true. He says Redskins are a sleeper / dark horse. They're a sleeper. Don't know about dark horse. They're one of the underrated teams that I like here. Don't sleep on my Jets. I'm sorry, Jeremy. I just don't like Sam Darnold, bro. I just can't. I just don't like him. And finally, Raiders like to. Oh God, that's not. I'm not going to read that comment. Predator almost got me there. Thank you guys for watching this video. One reason why your favorite team won't win Super Bowl 54. Again, of course, somebody has to win Super Bowl 54. But if there's one reason why I think these teams will not be winning the Super Bowl, it's the reasons that I mentioned in this video. So if you enjoyed, comment below your reasons why certain teams will win the Super Bowl, and subscribe to the Bottom Line View. We're at 12,528 subscribers. A great accomplishment that we're at. a quarter of the way from 10,000 to 20,000. It is awesome. I probably shouldn't have said that number, but we're marching on the subscriber count. So if you're not joined our channel or joined our group or joined our fan base, go ahead and subscribe. We give out great NFL content. We do podcasts weekly. I know we didn't do one this week. We will be back next week for episode 10 with Mitch, myself, Kev, and Luca from the Waterboy Report. You guys have been asking for that for a while, and I'm very excited to have him on the channel. They'll be here next week for a big game. We'll be giving out that big prize. I'm very excited for that. And also just more great content. I know Mitch will be releasing some stuff here in the next couple of days, so very excited to see that. So, on the bottom of my view, peace out, guys.